start our program, our parade certainly stepped along very lively and smartly. It was nicely done, and I think that we should right now give all the marchers a nice round of applause. It certainly made a colorful day for us so far. Thank you. On behalf of the veterans, Korean Veterans of Wallingford, the Memorial Association, it's my pleasure to welcome you all here to help us celebrate the unveiling and dedication of our monument. It was certainly was a long time coming, but good things usually do take a long time to achieve. So we figure we're right on schedule. What we're going to do now, I'm going to call on Eugene Keir, the money man of our organization. He's going to step forward, and we're all going to sing the national anthem, which will be played by the Milford Ancient Fife and Drum Corps. Folks are ready? Why don't you hit it and we'll follow you. Say, can you see the dawn's early light? What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming to the bright and bright sky. The perilous fight was Never heard you in finer voice. Okay, now we will have the flag raising, which will be done by George Cook, the Vice President of our organization, and Dr. Bob Lawrence, a member of the Board of Directors. Gentlemen, if you please. The covered clips are for the American flag. Thank you, gentlemen. Well done. Can everyone hear me okay? Are you hearing me? Okay, good. I was looking at the paper this morning and I found an article that I thought was interesting enough to call attention to today. It says North Korea plans to annul armistice. Seoul, South Korea, Associated Press. North Korea said it plans to annul the armistice that ended the Korean War and has kept a fragile peace on the Cold War's last frontier. The United Nations said Saturday that North Korea had told it of the plans, which were seen as the latest attempt by the North to force direct talks with Washington and to snub South Korea. For months, the Communist North had been moving closer to invalidating the treaty, calling it a useless piece of paper, and demanding direct talks with the United States. The divided Korean peninsula is technically still at war because no peace treaty was signed at the end of the war. Washington insists any peace talks be held between North and South Korea, but the North has refused, calling the South a U.S. puppet. South Korean media, quoting unidentified government sources, said the announcement would be made today, the 45th anniversary of the start of the Korean War. The United Nations said in a statement that it had been informed of North Korea's intentions, and it rejected the North's attempt to change, damage, or destroy the armistice agreement. It's ironic, 45 years later, seems to still be a problem. I just thought it was interesting. And now I'd like to call on John Fortin, a member of our Board of Directors, and John will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll have the invocation by Reverend Leon Horn. Reverend?
Let's bow in prayer. Blessed Lord God, creator of heaven and earth, giver of every good and perfect gift, thou who hast set the stars in space, who hast established nations and ordained government for the good of mankind. Thou hast blessed us with a goodly land, with a strong family foundation. We invoke your presence at this dedication of a monument commemorating those brave warriors who so unselfishly gave up their lives in Korea to defend the right of all men to life, liberty, and the pursuit of peace. From Busan to Incheon, from Seoul to Pyongyang, from the frozen Chosin to Hunan, for 37 months they fought and died, that all men might dwell in peace, in safety, and in harmony with thee, O God, and with mankind. Hear our prayers then, heal our hearts. Help us to so live that we indeed will do unto others as we would have them do unto us. To the glory of our great God and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Horn. One of my comrades found, I thought, a very moving poem that I'm going to share with you. It's called The Calling of a Patriot. In the silence of the meadow where valor proudly sleeps, there rests an unknown soldier somewhere beneath my feet. The spirit of our fathers shall always live in me. Their forfeiture of life set this country free. Their cause so brave and noble, no fear to take a stand. They knew the price to be paid to save the promised land. This is my native homeland. I will fight to keep her free. If she comes a calling, America can count on me. How beautiful my patriot dream to honor my country's calling. How ugly the battle cry to see my brothers falling. The prayers of brave and frightened souls cry out in liberating strife, thanking God for his mercy in sparing them their life. How fortunate this battle won to salute the proud and brave. I look upon fallen loved ones as I rest them in their grave. In the silence of the battle, where my heart proudly weeps, there rests an unknown soldier somewhere beneath my feet. Back in my native homeland, they may never understand the price a soldier has to pay to save the promised land. The writer is Gary Robinson, a Wallingford native and Lyman Hall High School, graduate who served from 74 to 77 in the 82nd Airborne Division, U.S. Army. And his contact with Fort Bragg with veterans returning from Vietnam shaped his response to the military. So that's written by one of our own, and if I say it was certainly well done. And now back to our program. I'd like to introduce a person who needs no introduction, certainly, but it's always a pleasure for me to be in a position to do this. It's our own Mayor, William Dickinson, who's certainly a fine supporter of veterans and veterans affairs.
Thank you very much. There's an old adage that says a man's greatness is measured not by the number of servants he has, but by the number of people he serves. Given that adage, there are 1,800 Wallingford residents who must claim high honors on the roll of greatness. Those 1,800 served in the Korean War, and today we dedicate this monument in their memory, and also ask that it serve as an inspiration to all of us to serve in the manner that they did. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And now, if I may, I'd like to introduce some of the people on the stage here. First off, our council members, Councilwoman Iris Papali. Thank you, Iris, for being here today. Councilman Steve Knight. Thank you, Steve, for being here today. And Councilman Tom Zappel. Thank you for being here today. And now, representatives from the state. We have the ever popular Mary Fritz from the 90th District. Thank you, Mary, for being here. We have Brian McDermott from the 34th Senatorial District. Thank you, Brian. And we have Lucian DeMeo from the 103rd District. And we thank you, Lucian, for being here. We did have James Abrams was unavoidably detained. Mary Mashinsky is involved with a family program today and couldn't be here, but she expressed her sympathy for not being able to attend, and also for Mr. Abrams. Mr. DeMeo, we have here a proclamation from the state of Connecticut, And I want to make it very clear that this was sponsored by all of our representatives, Lucian DeMayo, Mary Fritz, James Abrams, Mary Mashinsky, and Senator Brian McDermott. And it says, "Be it hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to the Wallingford Korean War veterans in recognition of their extraordinary and successful efforts to provide volunteer funding for a statue commemorating the sacrifice of the Wallingford Korean War veterans. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. Given this 25th day of June 1995 at the state capitol, Hartford, Connecticut, Ara Della Diaz, President Pro Tem, and I think James Ritter, the Speaker of the House. We certainly are proud of that, and we thank him. And I'm going to give it to Mayor Dickinson, and I hope he'll put it in the lobby at the town hall. Thank you, Mayor. Okay. Now, I had expected Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. I just want to be sure she's not out in the audience. She may have been unavoidably detained. Okay. And I'll call on next Colonel Ed Polanski, a member of our board of directors. Come forward, sir, and do your introduction.
Bob commented I shouldn't embarrass him, but after having served on the town council with him for a few terms, nothing can embarrass Parisi. We're here today to acknowledge the sacrifices made by over 1,800 men and women who served during the Korean War. Some of them marched down Center Street with their friends and loved ones, giving them a send-off and boarded a train that took them to Camp Pickett, Virginia. Others quietly and individually were called to active duty with little or no notice of their going. When they returned, there were no bands to greet them or celebrations to honor their service. They were heroes to their friends and relatives. However, as time went by, politicians and bureaucrats determined that they were liabilities because of their need for services that had been promised to them by leaders of government. The politicians gave them lip service in relation to these services. But when you check their voting records, you find that they voted against helping out the veterans. Our governor found time to go golfing at the GHO, but he could not find time to acknowledge the Korean veterans of Wallingford. Our Connecticut National Guard found it inconvenient to allow a flyover by military aircraft. Unfortunately, most of the federal, state, and local politicians and most of the National Guard bureaucracy are not veterans. Very few have served on active duty in the armed forces, and only a handful are combat veterans. They do not know the sacrifices made by these Korean veterans. It is easy for these faceless bureaucrats to cut spending for veterans' benefits. In Washington, we have some organizations that watch out for the welfare of the veterans. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, American Legion, Disabled Veterans, and the Retired Officers Association are always watching the Congress to make sure that they do not ignore the needs of veterans. We in Connecticut are lucky to have a man helping the veterans of our state. He's a World War II Marine Corps vet, a man who has served as state representative for 9 terms. He was a ranking member of the Public Safety Committee, and he was mayor of the town of Walcott. He has introduced legislation to benefit the veterans of Connecticut, such as increasing the property tax exemption for veterans, preserving the Soldier, Sailor, and Marine Fund, providing benefits to veterans who served in Grenada, Panama, Lebanon, and Desert Storm. He is the Commissioner of Veteran Affairs, G. Nigliaro.
That's the sort of place out there. I used to look like that once. You know, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been to so many veteran organizations, conventions, Memorial Day parades, and let me tell you, I love every one of them. Rocky Hill, Weehart, I guess pleased up there with the amount of vets we have, and we can't do enough for them. These Vietnam vets here, They're the most lovable guys up there and women that you'll ever want to meet. They have problems. They served us. You've all served us. Now it's time for us to serve them. You know, it was back when I was a legislator. I remember in I believe it was around mid-'80s, the federal cutoff point for the Korean War was January 1st, or 31st of 1955. The state of Connecticut recognized it as October 31st of 1953. What really got me perturbed, during that period of time when Family John was going on, we lost 14,000, had 14,000 casualties over there. Fort Chopville and many other incidents. Yet our veterans in this state were not entitled to any benefits that we give by state level. So it took me 4 years, but I was successful. Today, there are a little bit over 3,000 Korean veterans who are now entitled to veteran benefits in this state, justifiably so. Many of my colleagues up there, just recently we just had 2 bills passed up there. I went up and lobbied in the Senate. I went up and lobbied in the House. We've changed the Vietnam date now to November of '61. That opens the door for many more vets. We also have preserved now the honor guards, where before they were thinking of taking it out up there, some of my colleagues. Some of them make me sick, but not all of them. We got a lot of good people up there, believe me. But we preserved that, and now, if the National Guard does not have enough personnel to honor a military funeral, then the post, as of July 1, will be able to do it, and they will get $35 a day per man. I just want to touch on that honor guard and funeral. I remember back, I have to tell you this little story, when I was a legislator, we had a Roz Berman up together from New Haven, and she wanted to eliminate the firing squad and the honor guard in the state of Connecticut. Well, I'm sitting in the hall of the House, and this is back in '76. That's what it was. I can remember the year. She got up and made her speech. I'm sitting there. Speaker of the House happened to be a captain, former captain in the Marine Corps, Mr. Abadi. And she got up and said that she wanted to take the money out, that we should eliminate it, that it was nothing but people acting as grown-up men, acting as soldiers, and it was just a joke. Well, I do the slow burn. I'm sitting there. Finally, when she sat down, the speaker looked at me and says, I'm sure Representative Migliero would like to comment. I said, you can make book on that. I got up. I said, very nice. I said, you know, I can support her bill. Could be in a place, thought I was wacko. I said, but on one condition. That I'm allowed to amend this bill here and now, and that she stands in front of the last firing squad we had, and I want to pull the trigger. That's the way I left it. Needless to say, it was defeated. But I sensed at that time the prevalence of anti-veteran sentiment up in the House. There's too much of that in this country. In Congress, too much in the local legislature. And I sent out a hit list to every post in the state. And thanks to you fellas and all the different organizations, there was a change of attitude. And today, I say that we had some good backers, both sides of the aisle, support the veteran issue. I want to close in saying that when I look at the wars, I think of World War I. These men and women came back with a big fanfare, the band, flags waving, ticker tape parade. All of a sudden, World War II, same thing, 100% support, fanfare, ticker tape parade. Now we get to the Korean War. Never heard of it. What war? That's the forgotten war. That was a police action. You lost over 57,000 men over there, and women. You had over 8,000 prisoners of war, many of them still not accounted for, but that was the forgotten war. So there wasn't any disrespect, but there was no respect. And then we come to these gentlemen. Vietnam. I had 2 nephews that served in Vietnam, and they excelled. And I'm going to tell you something. They came back to the worst treatment that this country could have ever given them. Not all of us, but many of them. They were spat on, treated like killers. They were treated as outcasts. Well, let me tell you something, fellas. I'm proud of you. You served your country, and we're all proud of you here. Don't you ever forget it. now we take the Iraq War, that seems to come back. People, out of respect, because of the shame they felt for what they did to the Vietnam boys and the Korean boys, all of a sudden they start waving the flags again. Well, I'm glad to see that. Patriotism has to stay alive, and it's got to stay with our youth. But more important, one thing I'd like to tell this government, openly, never again should we send our troops, men and women, to a foreign country to fight unless every one of them are accounted for when the war is over. We don't leave that country. We owe it to these veterans. We give up everything. And I'm so proud to be here and looking at all the distinguished people here, all these vets. And I'm so proud to be the Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. I'm there to serve them. God knows I will serve them. And I want you to know I have a watch number I just opened up directly to the communications for the Commissioner, me personally. You can remember, it's an easy number, 1-800-550 and 40. I'm a zero. You can call me anytime. So I want to say to you all, that statue, that monument, it's quite a tribute. It says a lot, but we have to say a lot more. Let us never, never forget what these stars and stripes mean. They were created by an act of Congress. January 2nd, in 1776, the first flag that flew was in Cambridge, Mass. At St. George and St. Andrew's Cross. June 14th, which is Flag Day, in 1777, they decided by an act of Congress to go to the 13 stripes and stars with the field. Then it was changed because what they were doing along the line, every time a new state came in, they'd add another stripe. Well, can you imagine how many stripes and how wide that flag would have been? So by 1818, they went back to the original concept. And that's what we have today. That flag is not a piece of cloth. It's a symbol of what this great country stands for, the liberties that we preserve, and the compassion we have for the world, and that we strive for peace. That flag is our flag. And I wish we'd have another vote in that Supreme Court, Superior Court, because I thought it was a stupid vote. Because the way the law reads, anything that is created by an act of Congress becomes the property of the U.S. government. You take a dollar bill out and burn it, that was created, you'll go to jail. Then why not if you burn that flag? Well, they say under the First Amendment of the Constitution, that's the right of expression. Well, God help the person that does it in front of me, because under that same First Amendment of the Constitution, I will express my feelings right then and there. God bless America. God bless these countries. Don't ever forget, and I'll say to you former guys, but the rest of you, simplify, baby, till the day I die. Thanks. Well, thank you, Commissioner Migliaro. Between yourself and Colonel Belansky, we certainly had some pretty spirited words. Well put. Well put. I'd like to recognize State Representative James Abrams, who just stand up. Thank you for coming today. And I'd also like to note that way over in the corner under the spreading chestnut tree is Councilman Gino Zandri. You're welcome up here, but there he is, and we thank you for coming. And now I have a special pleasure. Oh, on the other side, we have them all over the place. Our chairman of the Wallingford Town Council, Thomas Zielinski. Thank you for coming. Yes, sir. The commissioner informed me he's got another veterans affair to attend in Prospect, so he did tell us he'll be leaving early. Again, Commissioner, we thank you for your inspiring words. Thank you. Moving right along now, it's indeed a privilege and an honor, really, and I mean this sincerely, for me to introduce the fellow that started this. It was a little over a year ago, I think, or he'll correct me anyway, but it's probably a little over a year. Johnny Danino called me and said, I think we should do something for the Korean veterans. We should get something going. And I know we called George Cook and some other guys. He got us all fired up. Of course, at our age, it takes a little doing to fire us up. We finally got burning. And before you know it, this thing got rolling. So anyway, let me introduce our president and founder, John Danino, who will introduce our main speaker. Johnny?
Gene, where'd you go? I wrote 6 pages here. He said them all. But I got some left. I'd like to say before I get going, a special friend of mine from Darien, I hope he's here, Henry Berry. Evidently he couldn't make it. Henry's not feeling too good, but he writes a lot of books about wars. And he's working on one for Korea, and believe it or not, we're in it, which is great. Let me get my eyes on. A lot of people were asking why did we pick June 25th? 45 years ago is when it all started. July 53 is when it ended. And he talks about 57,000 killed. Here's one for you. 103 wounded. 7,000 POWs. 8,000 MIAs. And here's the heartbreaker. 389 unaccounted for. 45 years. Think about this one. It hurts. I'm sitting over here and I'm getting flashbacks. I'm going back a few years. Kind of hits home. But one thing stands out in my mind. Never forget this one. Never forget this one. Up at the reservoir, we picked up a wounded GI. Me and another fellow. He's already shot. We're going to put him on the back of a 2.5-ton truck. He gets shot again in the back. We dropped him. We took cover. It's a tough one. I said to the guy, I said, we got to go back and get him. He says, forget it. Go back, we'll never get out. He was right. But all through that night, you could hear this kid screaming, help me. Help me. Don't leave me. Never forget that kid. He's like the rest of us, 19 years old. Well, anyway, let me get on. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. This is fantastic. This town is fantastic. I want to thank our friend, Kathy Riccio, director of the Veterans Center. Without her, I'll tell you, it would have taken us years. Kathy, are you here? Thank you. Rita, Heather, what a team. They dug up 800 names. Heather typed up 800 names. 2 copies, and got us going. When Mr. Plansky took over, he went down bothering the tax people. He got to be a big pain, but he did the job. There's so many people to thank. Bunch of good guys. Public Works, what a job they did over there. Money. Oh, boy. Thank you, Public Works. Thank you, Wallingford. I want to thank all the people of Wallingford for their support. This town has never let us down. They saw us off, they saw us come home. But the figures I just read off, they hurt. You just can't believe that 45 years later, Our government don't even talk about the 7,000 POs if they're alive. 8,000 MIAs, 389 unaccounted for. They call it a police action. What a price to pay for a police action. We got to be the best police force in the world. I'd like to close out my statement. To all the Korean vets of this town, just remember, from today on, this is not a forgotten war for us, because there's the proof. You're going to see it very shortly. This is one beautiful piece of granite, and wait till you see what's on it. My next guest, our next guest, I'm sorry, a gentleman that served in the United States Army from 52 to 54, combat infantryman in the 40th Division. He fought at the Punch Bowl, Sandbag Castle, and Bloody Ridge. I already left Korea when all these places were named. We took them one time, we lost them. We should have kept them lost. Anyway, he earned the Combat Infantry Badge and a Purple Heart. His total service extends over 40 years. This man rose to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel and is a graduate of the United States Army War College. He is now the president of the Connecticut Chapter 1 Korean War Veterans Association. Ladies and gentlemen and veterans, may I introduce Colonel James Shelmerdine.
Thank you very much. Did you hear me all right? Mary Dickinson, Commissioner Megalero has already left. Rosa Laura just stuck in, so I'll address her. Before I do start, I must say that the words you just said reminded me of, again, of the 389 unaccounted for 45 years, or 42 years. And yet our administration just last week renewed the most favored nation status to China, the country with a lot of answers that have not come forth. 1995 is a very important year. 50th anniversary of World War II, the E-Day, the J-Day. It's also the 20th anniversary, the end of the Vietnam War. And now, 40 years after the end of the Korean War, we will now see our memorial this July, next month, in Washington, D.C. I am reminded of a very favorite poem of mine. It's long. I will not read it. I will read just the last few lines. I think it's very apropos. It's The Young Dead Soldiers by Archibald MacLeish. They say we have given our lives, but not until it is finished. No one can know what our lives gave. They say our deaths are not ours. They are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say, whether our lives and our deaths were for peace and a new hope, or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. They say, we leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We have died. Remember us. I think that's what today is here. Also, famous author Herman Wouk penned, "The end of all wars begins with remembrance." And until July next month, that is the only national monument we have in Arlington Cemetery with that inscription on the bench, a bench of remembrance. When I was asked to come here today, or actually that our group, the Korean War Veterans of Connecticut Chapter 1, I said certainly. I was pleased. And when I looked into it further, I found out that this was not a presentation of a plaque with those who were killed. That was done years ago. But this is to the 1,700, I believe is the correct number, who served during the Korean War. And I said, wow, what a town. People look back on wars, and some will agree with the poet that says, yes, It was a famous victory. But what was accomplished by it all? What came of all the sacrifices and bravery, death, destruction, and human tragedy? Well, Korea was not a famous victory. Even as we fought it, it became a forgotten war. Few Americans really wanted to know anything about the horrors that engulfed the peninsula. And once the guns were silent along the 38th parallel, not in victory, but something called a ceasefire, everyone wanted to forget it. But the sacrifices made by Americans and the other 16 United Nations countries from 1950 to 1953 did much to make the world that we now live in less dangerous. And that's more than we came from other, more famous victories. It's been hard for most Korean War veterans to feel proud about their war. It was not even called a war for many years, although over 54,000 Americans died. There were more artillery rounds were fired than in all of World War II. We are all familiar with the famous patriotic song, "When Johnny Comes Marching Home Again." A few of the words, the first verse. "When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah, we'll give him a hearty welcome then, hurrah, hurrah. The men will cheer and the boys will shout. Now ladies, they will all turn out. We'll all feel gay when Johnny comes marching home." Well, we did not share in that type of a homecoming. No marching bands welcomed us home. Nobody gave us the keys to the city. And most of us at the time hardly understood why we had fought, except to save our skins. We came home unannounced, unrecognized, and in some cases unwelcome. And most of us just picked up our lives the best way we could. It's bad enough to be killed or maimed in any war, but who likes to think he suffered at some disputed barricade that no one had ever heard of, which never got into the history books? This happened to most Korean War vets. I looked in the encyclopedia. There are 26 pages dedicated to World War II, 5 pages to Vietnam, and there was 5 paragraphs for the Korean War. We sometimes call it the 5-paragraph war. Many of us never understood why we were sent or what we won or lost. It was a different kind of war. It was America's heartbreaking introduction to the power struggle that consumed the world from 1945 on. No one was prepared for it in 1950. Neither public nor the armed forces were ready to fight. This was especially the case with a classic limited conflict, waged far away for vital statistic stakes that, important as they were not making us understand why we were ordered to defend it. Yet most of us went without shirking or complaining. I remember the 43rd Infantry Division was activated, went to Camp Pickett. The 103rd Air National Guard was activated, went to Suffolk, New York. And we went to the recruiting stations, we went to the induction centers. However, we all answered our country's call to duty. We did not go to a foreign country to demonstrate, nor did we burn our draft cards or ignore a draft notice. Our early failures were predictable and well publicized. What was not predictable, nor even very well told, was that we fought so well in bitter campaigns, from stinking, deadly rice paddies to the frozen sides of horrendous mountains in hostile terrain, as Americans have never fought dubious battles, from the night to murderous artillery duels and pitched close hand-to-hand combat. The American military performed well and better than any troops in any war. We responded less to calls for patriotism or glory than from a sense of duty. That alone is something for which we can be very proud. As for the fighting, those who went know. Those who have been close to wars understand. That's what bands of brothers are all about. We fought, and once bloody, fought damn well. From the first to the last, the Chinese rated Americans as the deadliest they had ever met. Other armies marched better, showed more flags, but the Chinese enemy said we harried and killed their hordes with a deadly proficiency that the survivors still to this day remember. We did our job. No one can ask more of a soldier, sailor, airman, or marine. But we came back with no great sense of accomplishment or pride. Partly it was the attitude of the nation which never understood this war. It was because we did not win, as in other wars, confused as to why we served or what we had won. Few servicemen found reason to be proud, but we have reasons to be proud, many reasons. If any Americans ever waged war under worse conditions, from blazing sun to mind-numbing cold, on a land in which no inch seemed flat, only the hard and the lean survived. We did exactly what we were asked to do: repel the invaders and eject them from South Korea. We stopped aggression and made them pay a fearful price. Whatever the war cost us, the enemy paid tenfold. Korea was called the land of the morning calm. Well, as we know, some mornings were not very calm. We remember names like Busan, Incheon, Seoul, Mig Alley, Yalu River, Nekton, Chosin Reservoir, Sandbag Castle, Fort Chop Hill, Heartbreak Ridge, and getting hit, short, and some of us Pigmo. A victory was never ours to seek in the first place. Our government had no intent to invade or defeat China. As with our enemies in World War II, we had no intention of starting World War III. We hoped by checking aggression to prevent it. We fought so that the aggression against a peaceful ally would not stand. To do this, we had to defeat fierce North Koreans and massive armies of Chinese. We did just that, and the armies of critics and complainers should have seen it. It was difficult for the evil of the day. This was militant communism's first defeat at arms, and we are proud of that. President Truman sent ill-prepared troops into Korea overnight, and we paid the price for peacetime complacency. But then, we usually do. And if not careful today, we may have to pay that price again. Finally, to the families of those who gave their lives, we say thank you for coming here today. We are sorry for your loss. And to the names on the monument, congratulations. At long last. And I would like to ask you who served, you are most of you standing, so either take your hat off or raise your hand. Ladies and gentlemen of Wallingford, here are your sons, your brothers, sisters, even fathers and grandfathers, who 45 years ago answered our country's call to arms. Please join with me in giving them a very, very long overdue welcome home, job well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Colonel Shilmerdek. I also want to introduce our chief of our fire department, Wayne LeFevre. Thank you for coming. And we have an anonymous person out there, but she knows who she is. She's the wife of a fallen veteran who donated the flag, and we thank her sincerely. She told me she was going to be here, and she didn't let us down. A friend to all veterans, and certainly a friend to Wallingford. She's a hard-working lady. I guess that's why we like her. It's my pleasure to introduce, I'm a Republican, so I'm stuttering a little bit, but she's a great lady. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro. Come on.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and it truly is an honor for me to be here with all of you today. An honor to join the mayor, and I will mention that Commissioner Migliaro, I understand he had to leave, and State VFW Commander Andrew Flanagan, and our guest speaker who did such an outstanding job, Lieutenant Colonel James Shelmerdine. This is an afternoon, and it isn't going to rain on this wonderful, wonderful occasion, and it's a day on which we pay tribute to those who fought and who lost their lives in Korea. To the members of the Korean Veterans Memorial Fund, Bob Parisi and John Danino, George Cook, Gene Kerr, everyone has worked very hard to make today a reality. On behalf of all of us who are gathered here on this solemn occasion, I thank you for your dedication. I know how hard and how determined that projects of this kind require, and I salute your efforts. Dedication to the cause is something that we have in abundance this afternoon, and I cannot help but feel the emotion as I look around this group gathered here to pay high honor due to a member of the armed forces who has given his or her life to their country. Freedom, democracy, and opportunity. These are the foundations of our society. These are what set America apart. But too often, we take them for granted. We must never, never forget that our freedom was achieved and has been maintained at a cost. Countless American men and women have given of themselves, many giving their lives to uphold and to defend these guiding principles. And the monument being dedicated today is a proud symbol of our gratitude for the efforts of those who proudly served our country in Korea. And as many of you know, next month a national monument will be dedicated to the men and the women who so bravely served our country in Korea. This monument in Washington is long, long overdue. And you are finally, those of you who served, are getting the national recognition that you deserve. I thank you for the contributions that you have made to this great country of ours, and I am honored today to join you as we begin to pay the debt of honor owed to the Wallingford veterans and all the veterans who lost their lives in Korea. Thank you for the honor of being here with you today.
Thank you very much, Rosa. If I may. Now, we have an added treat that just kind of happened for us. We have two gentlemen, Rick Speck and Frank Guerra, and they collaborated and wrote a song about the Korean War. And they had their audition right out here in front of the monument Thursday night. And we were so moved by what they had done that we asked them to perform this song. So bear with us. We're coming to the highlight of the program, but we thought that you'd really get some pleasure out of hearing a job well done. This is Rick Speck, and the fella down the end in the red shirt is Frank Guerra.
Thank you. I'll give you a little bit of a background on how we got here today. My friend Frank Guerra, he's a decorated Korean War vet, received the Purple Heart among several other awards. We were talking talking one day, and he knows that I'm a songwriter, and I belong to the Connecticut Songwriters Association. He says, you know, we really have to do something about the Korean War. So he presented me with this challenge, and two of us worked on this particular song. And through several phone calls, we got in touch with Bob and John, and they invited us down and graciously honored us by performing the song today. This is our first public performance of the song. It's called The Forgotten One. It's dedicated to all the Korean War veterans. There were World Wars I and II, also Vietnam. We all remember them. Seems we forgot one. It lasted but 3 short years. Over 50,000 soldiers died, fighting half the world away against the red tide. Why do we seem to ignore this war? Neither lost nor won, but honor those who fought and died. Let's not forget the forgotten one. From the 38th parallel, south down the Soar, blood flowed on the Tucson line. Man, it was hell. From the waters of the frozen shores to the mighty Yalu River, the green cold still in their bones, the night's chill lingers forever. Why do we seem to ignore this war? Neither lost nor won, but honor those who fought and died. Let's not forget the forgotten one. Lucky ones made it home to no parades, no job well done. Their sacrifices faded away, just like the setting sun. Why do we seem to ignore this war? Neither lost nor won, but honor those who fought and died. Let's not forget the forgotten ones. Let's not forget. Let's not forget. Let's not forget. Let's not forget the forgotten ones. Let's not forget. Let's not forget. Let's not forget.
That was wonderful. I would hope that that song might make its way to the national delegation, Congresswoman, and certainly State President. Hope we won't lose it here in Wallingford today. Extremely well done. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's the high point of the day, the unveiling of the monument, and this is going to be done by our veterans of the Chosin Reservoir, which was one of the major battles of the Korean War, one of many major battles. And Johnny Danino, Frank Pasquarelli, Roy Cannon, and Richard Poplawski. Gentlemen, will you do the honors, please? Take it off. We've been waiting for a year. Let's go.
We're more you the other 42.
Look at that eagle is too high. Hey, there we go. And now, if I may, I'd like to call on Larry Malone and Hal Helen, members of our board of directors who will place the wreaths and flowers at the base of the monument. Gentlemen, please. And now, if I may, I'd like to call to the podium Rod Fulton and Frank Pasquarelli. Gentlemen, please. Rod Fulton will read the names of veterans who gave their lives during this period of time.
The following men died during their tour of duty serving their country. Charles H. Fleming, Jr. Frederick J. Gerber. Raymond C. Gidney. Richard C. Hansen. Matthew Kippish. Raymond Rogers, Jr.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now we'd like to have the firing squad for our departed comrades, followed by taps by Thomas Inch, Jr. I'd like to observe that the firing squad is made up of the various veterans organizations in town. We thank you, gentlemen, very much. And now I'm going to just do a change around before I call for the benediction. We will be serving refreshments in the tent here, and there'll also be refreshments at the Raul Luckberry VFW post on Prince Street. And the benediction will close the program, and before we have that, I want to thank the American Record, who's been very, very, very supportive to us, as was the New Haven Register and the Hartford Current. They really gave us the boost to advertise the ceremony today, and obviously bring all you people out and help you know what to do and when to do it, where to do it. Department of Public Works, as John mentioned, Henry McCulley, Joe DeCondone, Bill Salata, Wallingford Center Incorporated, who donated the bricks for the brick walk for us, and Kathy Riccio again, because they certainly deserve to be mentioned twice, her and their staff for the outstanding job. And all of you units that came here to help us celebrate it's just nice of you to be here. I guess it's the way it should be. And all the veterans in Wallingford, we have it. Thank you. And Reverend Parker, would you do the benediction? Reverend Sidney Parker.
Will you join me in prayer? This hallowed time, our gracious God, we have dedicated to remembering. For in remembering, we make those we are remembering come alive. Through remembering, they are still part of our community. And we do them that honor. And we are able to remember because you are the great rememberer, for you forget no one. And in your remembering we live. And so we ask that the men, the women who served in this most difficult war and place be not forgotten by us in the future ever, or by you. Now send us away from this place of remembering with your benediction, your blessing, your peace, and joy in our hearts. For you are the gracious God. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Parker. And thank you all again, folks, for coming here. You certainly have put the finishing touches. As John Danino said, it's a great town, and Wallingford has always supported its veterans. And again, you've demonstrated it. So from all of us, we thank you most sincerely. And the Connecticut Korean veterans will have a table under the tent